And hopefully it's showing live for me. How about you guys?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. If somebody will please say something. Do we have anybody in the chat that can tell us that you see us and you hear us? I didn't even open a screen to see if we had anything up there. All right, gang. Well, we are going to get up. There's Jay. All right, awesome. Thank you, Jay. You're the best. All right, guys. Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. We are celebrating a book that we read as a buddy read on the channel last month, and this book was absolutely amazing. We all loved it. We got together and decided we were going to do a live show about it, so that's what we're going to do here tonight. But first, I'm going to have my lovely co-hosts introduce themselves, and we'll start with Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela. My channel's Literature Science Lines. I actually read this back in January, so I'm going to have the fuzziest memory, but I really love this book a lot. So I think I'll actually remember more than I thought because I just keep talking to people about it, and I just loved the Discord chat. I'm like, oh gosh, the thing's going to happen. They're not ready for the thing that's going to happen. And I just sat there and I just watched. And it was glorious.
I bet that was really funny. Looking back on it and the things that were happening, I bet that would be really funny to watch.
Well, I mean, I also just keep my mouth shut, right? Because you just don't want to even remotely like hint at anything. You just like sit there and you're just like, except for I had to make Stephanie get to chapter 3 so she could meet a certain character. I'm like, Stephanie, you need to. But yeah, that's me. I just talk about books like everyone else here. So
this is true. All right, Kate, you're up.
Okay, I'm Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and like everyone else, I talk about lots of different kinds of books on my channel.
Ariel, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Ariel. This is my BookTube debut. It's pretty exciting. I'm not a booktuber. I'm a bookstagrammer. My channel is A Cup of Books 18. And I'm a big fan of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi, and I adored this book so much. This was a book that I picked up off the cover in the store before anybody had started reading and talking about it. I was just like, oh, this cover's cool. This sounds interesting. And I'm just so thrilled with like, oh, I just love this book so much. I'm so excited to talk about it.
You were reading it entirely way too slow. I was like, come on, Ariel, get to this part, get to this part.
I was having anxiety waiting for Stephanie to get started because I was just like,
I know.
All right, Stephanie, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, and my channel is Miss Richards Reads, and I read a little bit of everything, but primarily fantasy classics and cozy mysteries. And I also really, really loved this book, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
So, with your love of cozy mysteries, I bet this one, as far as the mystery of the Rook, really appealed to you.
It was so good.
I did not expect to love this book as much as I did, but if there's one thing I have learned over this last year, anytime Angela puts up a gush review, I just need to stop because I learned that lesson the hard way. I waited so long to read The Sword of Kaigan after she talked about it. And then when I saw her review of The Mask of Mirrors, followed by The Bookish Moms, I was like, all right, I pre-ordered it, and I was like, it was happening.
I was still nervous about that, though, because, like, you didn't like Elantris, and I would say Elantris and this book are very similar fantasy for me.
No. I vehemently disagree.
I'm just saying, wait for my gushing review of Elantris in, like, a year and a half, and you'll just ignore it.
I honestly feel if I had read Elantris before Stormlight, before Warbreaker, I think I would have felt differently, honestly. But I read his really good stuff first, and I just had expectations.
You're just wrong. It's okay, but we can talk about this book. It's fine.
All right, guys.
Throw down later.
Yeah. For any of you,
Andrew's in my corner.
Oh, poor Andrew. Thank you so much. We had a lot of fun getting our
I'm gonna be real with you guys. This mask might not make it the whole live, but I'll try my
Yeah,
best.
same.
So I sort of kind of did my makeup in a way that only looks okay with the mask on. So mine's gonna stay on.
Mine as
shawl-
well.
My shawl may not.
Yeah,
I
you
also
guys
want it
blurry
noted
to
Christy
me
also
right
likes cilantro, so I'm feeling validated by the second.
I'm not even putting those comments up. So. All right, so for everybody we have in the chat who has not read this book, who might be looking to see if this is something you might be interested in, let's talk about our non-spoiler thoughts and opinions about the book. And the first thing I want to mention is it is written by a team of authors named M.A. Carrick. And what's really great about this team is how they came up with their name. And I was talking about it with a subscriber earlier today, so I had to look it up. And it's Marie Brennan, and I think it's pronounced, is it Alec Helms?
I think so,
think
but I
so.
mean, I haven't heard it out loud.
Okay, so obviously M for Marie, A for Alec, and Carrick. They were researching all of the other author duo writing teams, how they came up with their name, and finally they just settled on Carrick because they both lived in a town named Carrick McCross. And so, like one morning, Marie at 3 a.m. was like, "Well, we both live in Carrick McCross. We shall forevermore be known as M.A. Carrick." And
awesome.
they have a whole website that is really interesting. It has a pronunciation guide for all of the names and the towns.
Ooh.
All of the tarot card readings that take place in this book, they actually performed these. They took a blank deck of cards and wrote out all of the names for the different cards. And each time that they wrote a scene in that dealt with a reading from one of the characters that we love, they actually wrote it based on the cards that they drew out.
That's so interesting.
That was
Oh, wow.
That's so
I
fun.
love that. So the history of how they wrote this book, I thought was extremely interesting. But I will put that website down in the description box below for everyone. All right, guys, let's have it. If you had to, in 3 sentences, get one of your best friends that you know they would love this book, how would you sell it to them in a non-spoiler way?
Mask Avenger, ballroom politics, found family. Assuming that person I'm giving it to loves those things, that should probably work.
Also Zorro.
Yeah, that's why I was
Yeah.
putting like a Mask Avenger, but yeah, that'd work too. I don't know a lot about
Yeah.
Zorro personally.
Oh,
Yeah, like decadent descriptions without being overly flowery.
Dresses for days.
Political intrigue.
Addictive writing.
Mm.
Yes. I read this book so fast.
Yeah,
And-
despite the size, it reads really fast for sure.
Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, to me, it's like, I want to say it's like a Venetian Count of Monte Cristo with, I mean, with a Zorro character, but I also feel like the leading Count of Monte Cristo can be a little Zorro-esque. Yeah, that's how I would go. Like a Venetian Count of Monte Cristo, which I actually forget where Count of Monte Cristo takes place, but it's been so long since I've read that.
Loved the air of mystery. I think one
Mhm.
of the funnest things that I had throughout this book was who was the Rook. But I also loved the huge con that our main character
Mhm.
was involved in. And she did not discriminate. She conned everybody.
Every single person. But she also, her like journey from like where we met her to where she is at the conclusion was so well done and so fascinating, and like the changes that happened to her on every page were just, I just thought that was so phenomenally done.
Yeah, especially I read a lot of fantasy books that have that con artist female character. Like that's a tropey character in fantasy, and she's my favorite of that. 'Cause she's the only time it's been written where I'm like, I believe you. I believe you are actually good at this. You're not just talking the talk. I feel you adjusting to things and like thinking on your feet and like I see all the masks you wear. Like not actually, but you know what I mean. Like
It felt
I
like
was
she
impressed
also-
with her skill. She wasn't my favorite character, but she impressed me.
Yeah, it felt like she also had like thought out her plan before she put it into action. Like she was prepared for a lot of stuff before it happened. It wasn't just like a spur of the moment. Oh, let's go do this con now. She thought it out before they went and tried to do it.
Yeah.
And I loved the complex society that the royals had, the nobles.
Yeah.
They also had a very unique way of their calendar and telling time, which is also on the website. There's a chart that describes all of the different times and what the different suns mean. And while I never got a grasp on the days and the time, it didn't matter. I don't think it was meant to. I think it was just something that was fun. But with the complexity of the society, while it was complex, I feel the authors did an amazing job explaining how it worked without being info dumpy or spending too much time on it. I just loved the pacing. I loved the time that they took to spend world building and developing the character. Like I loved all of the characters.
Yeah.
I did
Loved all the
too.
characters. Although I was looking sideways at every single one.
I also thought the world building was like masterfully woven into like the story, which is really hard to do. And I feel like in particular, it's very hard to do when you're a duo, because it's like you do have two types of writing. And this was like one of the first duo books I've read where I could not like individually say, oh, I think this author is writing, this section or whatever. It blended so well.
Me either. And have any of you read either of these two authors before?
I have
read
a Mary
Brennan.
Brennan on my shelf, and I'm so excited. And I actually read the like prologue of it because I was like reading my shelves to figure out what to do. And like, I do now see some of her authorial voice in this, but it is seamless. Like it's not like when you read Good Omens, you can kind of tell this is Terry Pratchett's voice with some Neil Gaiman ideas. Like that feels very much like what happens, but that I didn't sense that here.
Or Christy Lewis can back me up on this. The original with Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, that was
But I've always wondered, like, how did they decide who's going to write? Like, does somebody focus on the world building and the plot? Does somebody else focus on the character development? I've just always wondered how that worked.
Yeah.
So,
reading this, I always forgot that it was a writing duo. Like my head just could not grasp that idea. Like there's other books that it's really obvious, but reading this book, my brain was just on single author, and I kept having to remind myself just for reference that this was a writing duo.
Same. And it was about 630 pages, but it read so fast.
Yeah. Like butter.
And it even had long chapters, which I hate.
Yeah.
Very long chapters.
I like big books with the short chapters. But this one, I did not mind. I would sit there and not move for as long as I could and read those pages.
How many chapters were in this 600-page book? Was it like 20? Like it was this insanely few number of chapters.
Well, let's see.
I remember being like halfway through the book and being like, oh, I'm on chapter 13. Wait, what?
24?
Well, so they kind of
24.
do like Stephen King, where they have long
24.
chapters with the little tiny little.
Like the breaks, like almost like scene breaks.
So it looks like there
24.
were. Yeah, 24.
Nice.
That is crazy.
I think another thing I would tell people to get them intrigued to pick it up, because even though it's like not why I love it, but it's definitely a part of it, is like there's like 3 magic systems and it's based off culture and it's like all integrated and it's done in the way that I like, where you will understand enough, but you only understand as much as the people you are with. And sometimes they just take it for granted and you don't know how it works. Like ask someone how your electricity works in your house. No one knows how that works unless you're an electrician. But then there's people who are using the tarot card things, and that's really cool, intricate. And then you have these whole star chart things that are slightly different, and there's dream magic. So if you have been itching for that, which someone did ask if there are monsters.
Yeah, there are.
Oh my gosh.
There might be ghosts too. I feel like we kind of.
It depends on your definition of ghost, I feel, but there are other plane-ish things.
Yeah.
I think also another thing that I would say is that, at least for me, reading this, it was definitely fantasy, but it also felt like total real life, like this could actually happen. You know, if magic was real, in a weird magic real world way, it felt like this was a real world story.
And
with the politics too, because they would have this whole thing where a whole political arc is well, we need to fix this thing, and it's an infrastructure problem with magic.
But it was also interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
The magic was really soft, so I thought, okay, this is just going to be a very soft magic system, which I was fine with because I was loving the political intrigue and the mystery. And I mean, just y'all, I was constantly looking for any mention of the Rook.
Same, yeah.
And that was what I was most excited about. And so the magic kind of snuck up on me, and it started out soft, and then
That's
it just
what I was gonna
really
say.
kind of got developed. And I don't even think we've seen it peak yet.
I don't think so. That was what I was you hit exactly what I was going to mention, Leslie, where it's you get snippets of this magic at the beginning. And even when you're first having the tarot inspire magic, I at first was oh, it's just tarot. It's not magic. And then it was the further into the story you went, it was oh, no. This is actual magic. And more magic got woven in. And so I really liked that because I go for books where it's give me the magic system up front. I'm in. I don't care. I'm a fantasy reader. I want it. But I think this is a really good book, even for people who maybe haven't been fantasy readers for very long. It's a good,
say that
intro
people
book.
disagree with me, but I agree that I think sometimes we don't give beginners in fantasy enough credit. I don't think this is not accessible.
No, not at all. It's very accessible.
I 100%. So for me, I am very much character driven. So as far as characters, I fell in love with all of them. I just think they were all written so well, but my favorites kept changing depending on who I was suspecting was the Rook.
Yes.
I can't wait till we get to the spoiler section to talk about the Rook.
I am in love with the fictional character.
I'm wondering, I haven't actually known anyone who's not attracted to men. I haven't heard them talk about this book yet. I don't know, if you're only attracted to women, how do you respond to the Rook in this book?
Wait a minute now. Let me jump in on that because I was attracted to male and females.
Well, that's what I was saying, but I meant people who literally are I don't care, because I for sure personally was very this is the romantic mystery tension for me.
So remember in Stormlight when we all kind of laughed about the time that Dalinar first saw Navani without her glove, how sensual that was, and it was a glove, right? That happened in this book. A glove, the royals, the nobles, it was very important that they went out in public with their gloves on. If you took your glove off in front of someone else, that meant something. Very scandalous. And y'all, the men and the women were all written in such a sensual, sexy, tasteful way. It was not trashy. There was not any of the it just
it just gave a really rich atmosphere all around. It was very rich, very decadent. I love that particular scene with the glove that you're referring to is one of my favorite scenes in the whole book. And it's towards the beginning, folks, so it's
It
not
was
a spoiler.
it was a glove, guys. It was
Yeah.
a glove. And I mean,
I mean, Leslie is right though, Christy. It is oddly like it's nothing here is above remote. Like you could almost make this like PG besides maybe some of the gore, and the gore would be what I would rate it as like a PG-13 film.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
And
Right.
well, and there's a little bit of like abuse. With
like none
the
of it
early...
is the sexual content.
True. Yes,
Right.
that's very true.
I would not say there were any trigger warnings in this one, and except for one small scene, this almost could have been YA.
Nah, this is not. I mean, okay, I'm talking about publishing with YA. This this would. You can't write chapters this long in young adult often.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to. You have to.
You would have to
The
cut
structure
those.
of this book is too long and too meandering, which is my favorite thing. But like, we have a whole chapter where she's walking in a circle.
Mhm.
Like, that's a whole
Yeah.
chapter of this book.
But it was a good one.
I think
I know, but I'm just saying, like, that's not what a publisher says is a young
Yeah.
adult book.
for me, I'm kind of like that middle reader where I like a book that is equally balanced between character development and plot-driven material content. And this book balanced both so well. I was highly, highly impressed with how well it balanced developing every one of its characters, because it's got a huge cast of characters to begin with. And it felt like everyone was developed as much as they should be. And there was like this steady plot line that went through and that developed as the book went on. And I was so impressed with how well they balanced both, because usually you get like one or the other that's done really well, but not both in the same one book. In the introduction book too. Like,
And I want to add on to that I think it's thematic content. When I read a fantasy, I like it when there is thematic content, but it doesn't like, it's not super like over, like beating you down like over the head. And like this definitely has like culture commentary and colonialism commentary that is very important to the plot.
Class
but it's,
as well.
I think, like done really well, like really like threaded in well to my taste. And definitely there's more for discussion in that in later books, which excites me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
I
don't-
was a little shocked by that when we got into that, and I also thought it was done in a very tasteful way as well.
I'm trying to think who my favorite character is, and can I just say all of them?
Right.
Mine's
Because-
Vargo.
Mine too.
I am
Vargo's fantastic.
Vargo for life. When we get the spoilers, I got to talk about my boy, but Vargo is my favorite.
Yeah.
definitely.
So Vargo has a pet.
Mr. Peabody.
Yeah. While Mr. Peabody was a perfect gentleman, as far as we know,
I couldn't date Fargo because of that. Mm-mm.
He didn't bother me because he didn't seem like the creepy crawly I don't know. It just
They're all creepy to me.
I think it was more because he was like
legs.
we
Okay,
heard
so
him more
here's my
than we
thing with creepy crawly things. I only get scared of them when they're small and I can't keep track of them. If they're big enough that I can see them, it's okay.
and jeweled and
So
for me, I heard Mr. Peabody more than I saw him, and so he didn't bother me. But Vargo was also my favorite character. Like, I loved all of the characters, but from the moment that we met Vargo, he just stood out in my mind through the entire book.
Lita
I don't know
was
how
my
to
favorite.
describe Vargo to people who haven't read this book, but Vargo is
He's
like
Kaz.
what people would call a morally gray character. I disagree with that sentiment, but people call him that. So if you like morally gray characters, I guess there's
Oh.
Vargo.
I would
I
say
would
if you
call
like,
him morally gray.
Yeah, most people would, but I disagree, and I will defend. But that
But unlike, no, I won't go into that.
But I was just
say-
saying, like,
I'll
if
say
this
it
would be on a
was
morally gray character list, that's what people would mostly put him on.
so right before I read Mask of Mirrors, I had read Six of Crows, and Vargo to me is like the adult version of Kaz a little bit.
Yes.
Just not like they're not the same, but there are some things about them as characters and how they interact with the world around them that struck me as very similar in like a really good way.
Mm-hmm.
So like I
Well-
really loved Vargo and his whole like just like how he like, you know, you learn how he starts and how he kind of like builds himself up, and like every time he does an action, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, is this genuine? Is this to further something? Is this to
But
undo
was
someone
not-
else's maneuver?
He was not the only character
No.
that was
Oh.
like there were
Everyone
tons
was
of
playing
characters
everyone.
were playing the game.
Yeah,
It was almost like the Game of Thrones.
it really was.
And I got to a point where I was like, man, I love these people, but I'm scared to trust them. And there were only a few. Well, I won't say that. That's kind of
Save that thought. We'll come
Yeah.
back to it.
Back to it when we're in
I mean, I think what I'd also say is like what's interesting about this book is like a lot of people have agendas. And yes, we never know always what their agenda's for, which I think is what makes us think they're morally great because we can't trust them as readers. We're like behind this curtain. But like, I don't know. I just feel like we are led to believe they're doing things that are amoral. But like, honestly, they're just doing things that are against capitalism. And I'm like, eat the rich. Like, I don't really care. Now, will this character maybe potentially hurt this other character I like? Then yes, that gets a little dicey. But in terms of like whatever master plan they have, I don't know. That's just my take.
While we're on Vargo, can we talk about, I don't know if this is a spoiler, his interior monologue, if you will. Should we save that for spoiler? I don't want to like...
Yeah.
I mean, if you like the trope of someone who has like a way to communicate with other people, not verbally, like that's a trope I like that is in this book.
See, and I've got theories on what that may be.
We'll save that for spoiler.
But did anybody start out with a favorite character and as they went through the book changed where they maybe didn't like that person anymore and jumped to someone else?
No, I didn't not like a character at a certain point. I think my appreciation for certain characters grew as the book went on. Like at the start, I really, really liked Tessa.
Yes.
But then as, you know, we started meeting more characters, I didn't like her less, but I liked other characters more as we got to know other characters more in depth.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree. My liking of people expanded rather than contracted for sure. Well, let's see if we can summarize. This was the hardest thing. Anytime I talk about this book in a wrap up and a weekly update, I was at a loss for words of how to describe the plot because it seemed to me there were several different plot lines, and I'm like, but how to put in words what this book is about?
Especially because the blurb on the back of the book that gives you like the summary is it's great in terms of it doesn't spoil anything, but it does not encompass
Yeah.
I mean, I would
half
say
of this book.
I don't ever talk about plots when I talk about books because as a consumer of books, I don't usually care about that. That doesn't help me pick a book. What helps me pick a book are what are the tropes in a book maybe?
Yeah.
What's the writing style like? So I never think about it, but I would probably describe it in tropes. Like there's a con artist plot.
Yeah.
And it's going to be political and it's going to meander. And it's you're going to have to be cool with that. But I mean, then once you get past that, you can't really talk about what happens after that.
Yeah.
I think I go very vague, and like when I talked about this in my wrap-ups in my spoiler-free part of my review, I said like Ren is our main character and she goes to this town. I don't even remember the name of the town, but I attempted to say it at one point. And she's got this con game that she thinks she's going to try to pull off. And throughout the entire book, we see her have to deal with different people in the society and different rules and learn the way of the society and see who's playing who amongst. And she learns that she's not the only one that has masks on in the society. And I just kind of leave it at that. And
the whole,
That's a good-
and of course, we're wearing masks, so, and the mask of mirrors. So and I don't know how to pronounce where they were, but I was, in my head, I called it Nadezhra.
yeah,
That's how
I
the
said it.
audiobook pronounced
Yeah.
it.
They believed that mask, for one, protected the skin, but they had several events like the Festival of Veiled Waters, where they wore masks. When the royals or the nobles would go out slumming to the lower bank, they would wear a mask, which they thought hid their identities. But in fact, that just made them targets for the little thieves that ran around down there. And so it was very important that in society they had masks. And so that's why we decided we were going to wear our masks tonight.
Yes, I do.
Super cute company.
I think Oliver is my favorite. Don't tell Lucy.
Yeah, usually when I'm on Voxer and I'm talking to you, that's what she's doing.
I feel like the plot is like so hard to describe also because, like I said, the blurb on the back of the book does not do it justice in my opinion, but it's also like it's like a chess game in a lot of ways because it's like the characters are constantly making moves and trying to anticipate each other's moves and then turning things on a T when they're like, well, that didn't work, or oh shoot, this person did this move and I was anticipating them doing this move. So the plot feels like a chess game in a lot of ways to me. And it also it starts one way as a con and then it just kind of develops from there and becomes something completely different while never fully letting go of the con in a weird way.
Yes.
But I think the con changes.
Yeah.
I
Well, and
also
then
loved seeing the fencing in this. Like we get little
Oh
bits
my
of the
God.
fencing
That-
because
it actually is like
a
a
lot of
fencing
times
game.
like fencing is correlated with chess.
Mhm.
And I got my bachelor's degree from Penn State, and they had like years and years and years of the fencing championships. And so I learned way too much about fencing while
Yeah.
getting my my bachelor's degree
That's
in English
awesome.
at Penn State. And so I get excited whenever I see fencing because you don't often see that in books.
Mhm.
And
I used to fence actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just a little bit, but yeah. So I 100% agree that the book is fencing chess. It's just it's a really good parallel, Kate.
It was really exciting.
And they took it very seriously.
Yes.
World building.
Oh, just
So good.
so good. It's like one of the best world building books I've read
I would live there.
maybe ever. Like
Definitely.
No, I mean we've already talked about it, but I liked that we had so many points of view into the world building from the cast of characters.
Mhm.
Like not only was the world vibrant in how it was described through like the clothing and the architecture and everything like that. Like I think you had a good sense of its look. I'm not a visual reader, but even I was like getting that. But like all of our characters, like we haven't talked about Serato or Gray, but like he has a very complex role here where he works for the elite class. He's part of that police force, but he's actually from the other class that gets over policed, which is obviously, I assume, a parallel to our current times, at least here in the United States, you know, and like you always have those colonizer things that are happening in the story. And I thought that came through well with characters like Vargo and Serato and Ren, who all have these different ethnic backgrounds and relationships to the place.
Mm-hmm.
it was also really well done, like to have all those different characters be in different positions in terms of like the class within the world and even the different nations, if you will, and everything, because I felt like you got a really wide perspective, which was really helpful in understanding the how the politics work and what they affect, and like what you were just saying about the colonialism aspects and everything there, and kind of, and even that that adopt, like what is the word I'm looking for, when you take someone else's culture and twist it to your own.
Appropriation.
Cultural appropriation. There we go.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of that going on, which I thought was really interesting. And I just really like, and then you had characters who were from a class that were kind of like Gray, who you just mentioned, where they're from a particular class, but they can move through the other classes either because of their job, or in the case of our main character, their con. Like, that was really interesting.
But I also
Yeah.
like to see Gray interact with Leito's family too.
Yeah.
Like on a personal level, you see them all interact on their professional levels and their jobs and whatnot in society, but then you see it on a personal level with a lot of them in different parts of society too.
And it makes, like, not to talk anything at all about specifics of the ending, but the ending of this book, I've seen similar endings in other books that don't always make sense. It always feels like out of left field. But because the world building I felt was so foundationally strong in terms of the culture dynamics, the ending makes more sense, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, definitely.
It just felt that with the different perspectives from the different levels of class, it just really formed a good 3D picture of what was going on. And it was done in a way where it was spread out through the book, so it wasn't all at once for me to try and get and wrap my head around. It just, like, all of a sudden I just started understanding how everything worked, and I'm like, wait a minute, when did that happen?
Yeah, we even know the type of poker they play. I don't know if it was actually poker, but like the card game that they gamble with. Like,
and it didn't feel info dumping, which was best thing.
I loved it.
And then also, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I totally cut you off. So I'm sorry about that. But I was going to say what you're all talking about with the world building, where all of a sudden you understood it, made that moment where it gets turned on its head a little bit. So much. But like, it didn't feel like it came out of left field, but it still was like a moment of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Sets your heart racing.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not a negative per se, but I think the one thing that stopped this for being like the ultimate 5-star read for me was there is like a tonal shift in the book. And I think I liked the first half's tone better than the second half, like enough that I just noticed, it was just like, I missed when we were over here and the stakes were less. You know what I mean? Like, there were definitely things I still loved in the second half, and I'm like so excited for the sequel and to reread it, and I like bought a copy and everything. But like, I do think that tonal shift, the mileage may vary there depending on who you are as a reader, because I feel like that's the case in any book with a tonal shift, right? Like, some people don't care, and some people are like, but I liked this part, or
I didn't mind it.
I didn't either. I was like, oh, cool, we're going here.
Well, I think that's when it goes like you were talking about, Kate, like it's really good at balancing character and plot, but I do think it's kind of segmented, and the first half's a little more character and the second half's a little more plot. And I think when I lost my character moments, me as like, that was why I was there. I was like, oh, but I want to like have those quiet, silly scenes and more. But I think that's kind of what happened when that thing happened.
More rough.
For me, it was that kind of flowy writing that I didn't think about what it was doing. I just went with it. And I was like, okay, so we're going here now. This is how the story is going to go. This is how we're going to feel.
Well, I think it happened due to events.
Yeah.
Where suddenly things got serious. We weren't playing around anymore. The stakes got raised.
Yeah.
And at this point, I would say, if you have not read this book, you need to go ahead and dip out, because
and go buy the book and read it.
Right.
Exactly.
Have we not convinced you?
We're about to get wide open discussing all of the things that we have been trying to keep under wraps.
I think we've done a great job. I don't know how anyone could predict anything based off our vague nonsense.
It's so hard to talk about this book without spoiling it. It is, guys.
Yeah.
This is a great book. if you love fantasy, if you love just fast-paced reads, intrigue, society.
Mystery.
Oh,
Great characters.
I do say if you like The City of Brass, I do think you'll like this book.
Mm.
I agree.
And it has worked in the wild. I have had a reader who's read one and then I gave them the other because they finished the trilogy and they needed something else. I'm like, here's this book.
if you've read the Stormlight Archive, and
No, we can't do that. No, those are very different books.
well, but if you got a little weak in the knees when Dalinar saw Navani's ungloved hand, this book is for
We
you.
are not comparing Sanderson's lack of romance to this book.
All right, gang. Hopefully they have dipped out that haven't. Unleash your spoilers. When Leto died, I
Oh my God.
mad.
I like cried.
I did cry too.
I was like,
It's like,
this didn't happen. This isn't real. This did
Yeah.
not happen. But oh my word,
that just
sacrificed his life for because he believed and he believed in her and why she did what she did and still considered her family. 'Cause he
yeah.
was the one that was like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be blood to be made into the family. And I was like,
My reaction was actually delayed when it first happened because I was like, okay, so we're supposed to believe that Leato's dead now. But we're in this crazy dream magic world that like it says that he, fell down this whole thing, but it didn't actually say like it said Leato was gone. And I've seen way too many movies and TV shows and read too many books where that
Show me
is
the
like
body.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't see a body.
I was waiting for someone to bring the body back and say, "I'm sorry, your son is
funeral
dead."
is- yeah.
So my reaction to Leato's death was so far delayed because I was just kept waiting for him to come back. Kept waiting for him to come back. And then when it happened, I think like I was sad when I realized that he was actually dead, but I was at that point so distracted by everything else going on that my grief for that character didn't happen until like I finished the book and I was able to go back and think about everything that happened during the book.
Well, speaking of the Tremanus family, did anybody else suspect his sister as being nefarious?
I did entertain that for like a hot second, and I
That's-
still
that's-
wonder.
I thought
But-
her and Sibilant are
Yeah,
and that girl is not good news, but oh my goodness. Her
Yeah,
scenes
but
are
aren't they hot together? Yeah.
Yeah.
They
yeah,
are.
yeah.
I would switch for her.
No, this author
Don't tell
duo,
Chris.
I don't know what they did to get those like tense moments down to like a science.
Yeah.
But like we had the closet scene, which like top tier. Yes, of
Oh,
course.
yes.
We need a closet. Like, yes, obviously.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
I thought she was devious, but that she was more manipulated into the actions than it was driving her own actions, if that makes sense.
At this point in the book, though, I was suspecting everyone of
Oh, yeah.
opposite of what they were.
Mm.
No matter who they were.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Can everyone say who they like first thought before they like started switching? Who did you think was the Rook?
Oh,
Leato.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
well,
one that the book wants you to think. That's
Yeah.
Right.
that's what the book tells you, and then you know
So-
you're wrong. But
But I wanted him to be it.
I know. Yeah. So this was really a weird experience for me because at the beginning, I thought it was going to be Gray. And then I convinced myself that I was wrong and
Yes.
that was too easy.
Well, right, because he was blaming himself for his brother's death.
Yeah.
Right,
we
which
didn't-
was why I thought it was him.
Same.
And because of like his crusade to find the children and
Right.
just I was like, this feels very much like someone who would don a mask to go against the people that he ultimately serves because of his position as a police officer. And it's like he can't do what he wants to do as their version of a police officer. So what do? You pull a Batman and you take it into your own hands.
Yeah.
And so
I thought it was great at first, and then my brain convinced myself that I was wrong so much that when I got to the end and it was revealed that it really was him, I was like, but wait, I thought I read somewhere in here through Olive Run's detectoring when she was trying to figure out who it was that like definitively said it could not be Gray. So I was like, this makes sense because I thought this the whole time. But then at the same time, I'm like, what did I read?
I
I-
actually suspected Vargo for a hot second.
yeah.
I did
Then
too.
realized-
yeah.
I suspected
He
the
was who I
fencing
convinced
instructor.
myself.
I suspected everybody.
Well, with Vargo, I was like, no, he's too pretty. He would never cover up.
I was just like, this is going to be so interesting if it does turn out to be Vargo. I'm like, having Vargo as the Rook with him set up as like this nefarious guy on the outside, and he's really the Rook. I was rooting for it to be Vargo the
When
whole
they
time, even though I knew it wasn't going to
described his outfit for, I think it was the Festival of Veiled Waters.
Mhm.
Being a visual reader,
Even I visualized that a little bit. Like that
Yeah.
was very
It's a good
descriptive.
It's a
That's
good time to be a visual reader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was probably one of the only times where I've had that type of like visceral image in my
he
head
didn't
of
have
like
enough- he
of a
didn't have
male
enough
character's
balls for Mr.
costume.
Peabody to hang on to. Which did anybody think Mr. Peabody and what was the name of the voice that
I'm
Oh.
still convinced that they are the same. No one has convinced me that it's not the spider. It is
I
the
thought they
spider.
were.
I
I
don't
thought
know.
they were the
that.
I don't know. if
I'm
it's
99% sure the end of the book verified to me it's the spider, and I'm holding that
Yeah.
till someone else gives me a more
I thought it
reasonable
was the same
explanation.
That
too.
would make so
I
much
think he
sense.
harnessed someone like one of the Venetian families, the Romani peoples. I felt like he harnessed a spirit of like an ancient
Like
to
an
teach him
ancestor?
magic and things.
And put it in
And-
the spider.
I think it's in the spider. I don't know what's in the
Yeah.
spider, but it's in the
Well,
spider.
I was trying to
That
pay
would make
attention to when he would
sense.
hear the voice. Was Mr. Peabody ever mentioned? And Mr. Peabody wasn't mentioned a whole lot. Because when I first
Yeah.
met him, I thought this is going to be a problem.
But then at the end of the book, remember, that is the one time where Renetta or Ren or whatever, she has 10 names, whatever her name is.
Arenza.
She's standing there and she sees that he's talking to someone and is like patting his thing with the spider. Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And also, we don't
I
know how
think it was
long
the
their
red
communication can go. Like, it could probably go distance because it's all mental communication.
Mhm.
And also, the way he does things with spider webs and thread. Like, it's the spider.
I think
We
it's
That
all
makes a
were
red
lot of
tricked about the
sense.
gray thing. We can't be tricked about this spider thing. It's the spider. It's the obvious answer.
It's the red herring answer. What?
That would make a lot of sense.
I was calling it was the spider since like 30% into the book. I'm like, it's the spider.
Well, when I first met the spider, I instantly thought, "Oh, this is the voice." But then I was like, "The voice is always in italics, never in quotation marks." Okay, so are they speaking telepathically, or
Yeah.
does he have
Yeah.
somebody trapped in his body with him?
That's what I took it as, but now that Angela has put this idea in my head, I cannot let it go.
Yeah.
That's what it has to be.
It is, okay, why else?
I thought it was
Okay,
the
as an
spider, too.
author, why else are we talking about this spider as much as we are? Unless
is
it's a
true.
cool animal companion type thing
He
like this.
he likes pretty things.
Well, I mean, according to you, spiders are not pretty things, so this doesn't make much sense.
Well,
I
but
think
Mr.
Fargo would be
Peabody
someone.
was described as a colorful, and he was a gentleman. I mean,
But I mean, also,
I
like,
love
that's
that.
like the perfect way to keep your spy on your person and have your spy come and go is treat it like a dumb pet.
But how? Well, I guess the spider could have gone because the voice alerted Vargo to things happening that were not near Vargo.
I also do agree. We don't know a lot about the powers of the spider, and it definitely has to do with a part of the magic system we have not unlocked yet in terms of our knowledge categories. Like, there's more at foot. There are deeper things going on. Like, this definitely has the thread of a trilogy where, like, the first book is like, small problem that we solved, and now bigger things are about to happen, and we're gonna have to deal with that. Like,
I also didn't think Donata was going to let Ren in the family. That was a bit of a
Oh,
shock.
I was shocked.
I was too.
yeah, but she's a smart lady. Like, you lose face if you admit that you've been conned for a year and a half.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but Ren did help. I mean,
Wait, did Donata know?
she didn't know.
I don't
she
remember
doesn't
if by the
know
end she found out or not.
Okay.
She
Sorry,
She
knows-
only
Leslie.
knows part of Ren's
She-
story.
Yeah, she doesn't. She knows that Ren is not. What was the sister's name? Letitia? Lecelia? I know she changed her name.
Mhm.
She knows that she wasn't the actual daughter of her, but I don't
Okay.
think she knows everything
Yeah.
yet.
No.
But the sister does. The
Right.
Lea's sister does.
Gianna. I don't know how to say her
I think
name.
it was Julia. I thought it was.
No.
It was like G.
Oh, someone mentioned it in the chat, but it's a G name.
It is a G
Yeah.
name.
Diana or something like that.
Speaking of characters, I was waiting to betray us the entire time. The third person in the trio, Tessa, Ren, and the third dude.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember his name, and I'm so glad it didn't happen.
Sledge.
And I'm like,
Sledge.
Sedge.
Said.
I was just going to be like, if you
Yeah.
betray your found family, I will
thought he was
not
going
be
to.
happy.
I
Yeah.
really thought he was
I did
going to
too.
and be like, "Well, y'all abandoned me. You left me for dead." But I was so
I w-
glad he didn't.
I was expecting him to, but not intentionally. Like, I was expecting him to make some kind of a mistake that would then lead to a betrayal, but not like intentionally full out, like, I'm betraying these two sisters.
And I hope the little officer that Gray had spying on Ren and Tess, I hope he and Tess end up together.
That was so cute.
Yes.
I
Also-
knew. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you go. I've interrupted you so many times. You go.
I did not suspect him either.
Mm-mm.
No.
My heart broke for Tess at that point, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When that was revealed, I was like, no, but Tess.
'Cause she just worked so
I
hard.
know.
And I loved her magic, what she could do. With it.
Mhm.
That was one thing I love about the magic, how it could be specific to you as a person.
Yeah.
Like she was able to do these things with these as a seamstress. Ren
Mhm.
was able to do things with her cosmetics.
The makeup.
Yeah,
It's like, what?
I'm like,
Right.
Ren, sister,
Share.
help me out.
Give me this makeup that you have that transforms your face. But I also really hope in the next book we do get a bit more Tess, because she like was such like a kind of an in the background character for most of the book, and when she's kind of started to come out into the forefront, I was like, oh, girl's got some spine, like hey, like, so I kind of hope we get more of her in the next book, because I think she's extremely capable with more than just the seamstress stuff, and I want to see some of that.
When the Rook gave Ren her mask and made her the Black Rose, like just the mask transforms into her out. I was like, I got chills.
Full on sobs for me.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
I couldn't
I
hold
want the
it back.
shawl.
and it was at that point that I went, oh, well, that's why the series is called The Rook and Rose.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I had forgotten that until we got to that part, and I was like, oh.
I
Makes complete
love
sense.
that they're going to be working together.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
can't wait to
I'm
see it.
What has to happen? And oh my gosh,
Something
think they're
that's
gonna
going to like bother me a tiny bit in book 2, but I'll let it go for the sake of story, is like, you notice in book 1, whenever we're with Gray, he doesn't think about Rook things.
Mm.
Which, like, if you're the Rook, wouldn't you occasionally think about Rook things? And I bet in book 2, he's going to think about Rook things. I'm like, well, why are you now thinking about it all the time? You weren't ever thinking about it before.
I also think it's really interesting though, because it's almost like he has like, even with like the reveal, it's almost like he has like two consciouses in a way, where it's like, here I am, I'm Gray, I'm this person, and now, oh, I'm over here and I've taken over this mantle of the Rook, which seems to come with maybe some
You're right. I think
Power-
he might have some like possession thingy, which would make me happier.
Yeah.
But I still think he would be cognizant that he was being possessed on occasion. So I wonder if we're gonna see that, which I do want to see, but I'm gonna have to try and tell my like thinking brain to shut up about it. If that makes sense.
Yes,
Because they're the
Stacey!
best, Stacy. That's why.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I was going to say
The
that
Rook wasn't
earlier.
even that dark. He was always so lighthearted. Like he was always so
He was Zorro.
charismatic.
Like,
He like lit up the room, even though
Yeah.
he was like sneaking.
Complete
But-
sorrow.
We didn't know. We really honestly didn't know the Rook and his
Mhm.
full intentions. We didn't know that he didn't kill Gray's brother. Like he might have started killing. We didn't. We knew it.
I mean, I assumed the original Rook was Gray's brother. That's why I thought it was Lieto or
Ooh.
Gray for a long time, because I thought the last Rook,
yeah.
and that's why they all trained together in fencing. But that's why I was between Lieto and Serrato for a long time.
That would
But
be an
then-
interesting twist.
I actually think the Rook had been a thing for centuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's passed down.
But yeah, it was passed down when he died. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, no, because Gray's brother was at the warehouse and Gray was involved in something that led to the fires, which made him feel guilty. So Gray must have already been the Rook. But for the dueling, like Gray, Gray having more than one, I think that could have stemmed from the people that he came from that he felt loyal to and was trying to help versus working for the nobles police force. I think that was constantly dueling inside of him too. And I think he really wanted to use his position to help his people and hopefully find a way to bridge the gap between the two, which man, when that whole thing boiled over with
Mhm.
at the
The fountain area. I don't remember what it was called. But
The
it was the festival of
it was the Festival of Waters.
was it
It's like the
Festival
one
of
time of year
Waters?
where it's supposed to be that this fountain that's in the dream world can
Yeah.
cross over, but there was like weird stuff happening because of the old orphanage lady who's like weird,
Yeah.
scary girl.
She brought it
That was so.
the dream world into
So
reality
creepy.
Yeah.
because that wasn't the year that the fountain ran. And it
Yeah.
only happened every 15 years. So, but in the dream world, it always ran. So she brought the reality, the dream world into reality so that, which she was nasty.
She
Holy
was
cow.
terrifying,
Talk
Yeah.
about a person who could have stayed dead.
right?
Yes. I actually had nightmares with her in it.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
She reminded me of like if anyone's a gamer in Witcher 3, the game when he has like the ladies with the kids that he has to go save the kids. No?
I
Okay.
haven't played the game. I read the books, but I haven't
Basically, they're just creepy people who kidnap children, and it's just like that's all I could think of whenever she was like there in her new form, if you will, was this particular scene in the video game. And I was just like, this is not
All I
cool.
could
With her
think about
weird
was
spirit
Chitty Chitty Bang
doggos.
Bang.
The
Yeah, her weird
reveal
dogs.
of who she was working with at the end too.
Ah, I know. We haven't even talked about what's his name? Meditor?
Well, there's
Well, him and his son. so-
yeah.
The real villains.
Yes. Not Vargo.
Yeah, it
Oh
was
my
Ren's
gosh.
connection. We haven't even talked about how Ren's accidentally the chosen one, and we didn't know that the whole book.
Right.
Right. I mean, that was like a surprise trope. Like at the end, it's like jumping out the bag, and it's like, oh, hey, here's one last one. We're gonna sneak in here on you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ren somehow the chosen one because she happened. Was it because she was born on that night or because her mom conceived her on that night? Couldn't remember which one, but it's because of that.
Conceived.
Okay.
I think it was conceived.
Yeah.
Which
So I
also
guess
we
she's
don't
not
know
the
who
only
Ren's
chosen
father
one.
is. Are we
Right.
going to find out who Ren's father is? I think we're going to find out who Ren's father is at some
I
point.
think we
I bet-
are.
Yeah.
Watch it be the Rook and
Father-
things get weird.
Right.
I don't know.
Ooh.
Not Gray, a different Rook.
A
The old
previous
Rook.
Rook.
That's flashback to the Mortal Instruments.
Oh, talk about a
God.
series that made me angry. It's such a stupid trope. I hate that trope.
I mean, the first time I read it, I was like, this is stupid. Nobody's going to believe it. But then other people were like, hey, there's incest in this book. And I'm like, no, it's not.
Like, yeah, you know, but like she doesn't let it go for like a book and a half. Whose runs? I don't think we know, do we?
We don't know yet. No,
know
it's,
yet.
we don't know.
No,
I think it's implied that he's probably has magical properties that were important to making her having the do ex machina implications for the world. I don't really know.
And I do agree with Chatting Channel. I
Could be.
kind of thought
Yeah.
that we're going to find out that Ren is actually related to the family somehow.
Well, didn't Donata's husband have mistresses? So, yeah, so it could be. There's
Yeah.
part of me that would not love that because it feels too easy and convenient. But if it's done well, which I anticipate these authors would do, just with how masterfully they've handled everything else in this book, I'd be fine with it. That's
Yeah.
I
My
want to
rule is
know
always
more
if it
about-
doesn't pull me from the story, you can do what you want. Even if
Yes.
outside of the context it doesn't make sense. But if
Yeah.
while I'm in it, we're good.
yeah, definitely.
That is also true.
It would make
that's
total
right.
sense if Ren's dad came at least somewhere from the family, if
Mhm.
not from Donata's husband.
That makes the almost relationship between Ren and Lieto a little odd.
I mean, they were already fake cousins.
Look,
Yeah, it was
Distant
already like
cousins,
that.
so-
That's true. That's true.
I guess that was something that that they did. Kind
I
of like
mean-
in A Song of Ice and Fire, the Targaryens married brother to sister.
Well,
Yeah.
even
So-
just in European history
Right.
as a whole,
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep the royal
cousins
line.
married all the time.
Yeah, back then you stayed in the family line to extend
Mhm.
it further. You didn't. Why would I go outside the family when I have this giant family here?
Yep. Keep the bloodlines.
Yeah.
Stephanie, what do you want to see in book 2?
I'm horrible at predictions, to be honest. But I want to find out who Ren's father is, and I want to know more about that backstory for
Mhm.
sure. And I want more of the world building because I love it.
I want the Rook and the Rose to be in a closet again, maybe a tighter
Oh,
closet.
yes.
Um,
I want
Yeah.
more Vargo.
I want there to somehow to be a one bed situation, maybe. I'm trying to think of all of the corny, like,
Like, just go full romance tropes, but in this book.
yes. Listen,
Yeah.
that's part of the appeal. I want it to be like a third romance. That's what I think I'm at the moment. It's like I want that tension, but I also don't necessarily want her to end up with the Rook because I still really like Vargo and her. I really do like.
But
Yeah,
But
but everybody is.
he
I can't decide what side he's on.
I think
Honestly.
he
He's
They're
on
both.
his side. He's on each
True.
rich side.
Yeah.
That's the side. That's it. It's you're either
Yeah.
pro the nobility or you're pro getting your own money. That's it. Those are the sides. He's not anti-Ren. He's just anti not having money. He just wants a seat at the table.
Let her go in to that building knowing what was going to happen to her.
He didn't
You
know
could
for
feel
sure
bad,
like the
though.
whole thing. He knew something bad would happen, but not that she would suddenly trigger a dream world chaos.
No, but he knew she was going into danger.
So he's not the best friend. No, he's
But he
not
also
a good
felt
friend.
guilty about it.
I was gonna say he had some
So-
remorse about that.
Yeah.
I also
He let
think
it
it's
happen, but
hilarious
he didn't like it.
that the little guy that he got involved with for information, when his family got elevated at the end, and he's like going, "Oh hell!"
That's something we haven't talked about, which we could have talked about in spoiler free, is how literally could this world be more LGBTQ friendly? I don't think it could. It's just literally
So well done.
exist how you want.
Yep.
I
I love
loved
that.
It was so fun. I was attracted to everybody.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Everybody. They were, I don't even know how to describe it. They were so sexy and sensual without being gross. It was just, it was like, I don't even know how they made such normal interactions just have that air of just,
I mean, I think that's key though, what you said. It was more of a focus on sensuality.
it's what they weren't saying, what
Yeah.
they were just implying with gestures and just
This would be a great movie with the right cinematographer.
Oh, I want a TV show. I want like a 5-episode per book.
Yeah.
I don't want
That'd
too
be
many
great.
episodes, but like I think 5 would be okay for what we have here. Like middle episode is when Leto dies.
Yeah, I think you might need more than 5, but no more, and certainly not like a full like prime time.
Yeah, I mean, no more than what
Series.
they did for Shadow and Bone, because that was
Yeah,
getting long
exactly.
for me. As someone who hadn't consumed the book, that was like where we were getting on the edge of, because that was like 6 hours, 6 to 7 hours. I liked it. I like Shadow and Bone. Don't come for me.
Oh,
I
no,
like-
no.
Started that over immediately. There wasn't enough Darkling. There's never enough Darkling.
I liked, okay, so this is a real small tangent. As someone who hasn't read the books but knows young adult very well, I was like, oh my God, this guy is too old for her. What are we doing?
Oh,
Did
I
you-
love Ben
did you see-
Barnes.
Did you see Luke Edwards, his little parody about the show?
No, but I will go find it.
You have to go see it. But he loved the show, but he was kind of making fun of stuff like that. And he had a green screen where he was just kind of putting himself into scenes. And so it's the scene where the Darkling and
Was he like, you're a Grisha now? Was it one of those lines or something?
when he was kissing Alina and he like pauses it, and he like comes around Ben's shoulder, he pops up and he's like, to Alina, he's like, he's like twice your age, right? It was so funny.
But even like if you just look at the actor's age, like the actor for Alina's 25 and the actor for Ben Barnes is 39.
Is Ben Barnes really 39?
He
He
is.
really
He's not a
is.
young man. He's an attractive human. He's the same age as Chris
But-
Evans. I bet you didn't know Chris Evans was 39, but
But the Darkling has lived for centuries.
yeah,
And
why
I
does he want a 17-year-old? He's so old. Why does he want that?
power? Oh, look,
The Darkling doesn't make sense to me. If I'm 100 years old, the last thing I want is a teenage drama angst case. Like that's the last thing I want.
Don't read ACOTAR. Stay
Oh,
away
I
from
have.
ACOTAR.
I accepted an ACOTAR because I don't mind one of the characters,
But
and I
young
accept it when I
adult,
read it. It's when I visually see it that I'm like,
Okay,
oh,
that's fair.
It's
They
like
always-
no.
Yeah, no, I get
always
it.
have the teenagers in adult situations. Like, never would a 17-year-old make the decisions or have the cunning to plot these things. Never in a million years. I mean,
Yeah,
heck,
today.
I was in my early 30s before I got mature enough for some of these situations.
My one question though is it's a trope.
But-
It's fine. It's been there forever
Mark-
that young women goes with old dude, but I want the reverse, and the only one I can find is like an Underworld and Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
Like I just want the immortal woman with the 17-year-old boy, which again, why would she want that? But I just want equal representation a little bit.
I don't think I've ever read the reverse now that you say that.
I mean,
Well,
mostly it's because young adult is normally read by women.
Yeah.
It's just that's not looked upon as normal. Like,
Mm.
I'm 6 years older than Chris. My dad told me, hey, you need to marry a younger man because you want to not outlive him. If you marry younger, you'll die at the same time. And, I need a younger guy to keep up with me.
I have dated so many younger men. I'm so done with them. They're finding themselves left and right. Oh, well, we are solidly
Oh, we are in
here.
spoiler
But we're
town.
not spoiling this book at the moment. We're spoiling
Yeah.
every other young adult series.
Sorry, Sharon.
Sorry, Sharon.
We
Happy
were
Mother's
spoiler
Day.
free until about 35-ish minutes, I think.
Yeah.
We held out as long as we could.
Yeah.
You know what other character I really want to see a little bit more of was Arcady. I thought she was
Yeah.
so feisty.
Was she the fencing teacher? I'm trying to remember.
No, Arcady was the little street rat that ran
Oh,
the other
yeah.
street rat.
Bones.
She was
loved
great.
her.
Arcady
She was
Bone.
hilarious. And
Was
she was something
Spunky.
else.
She was so fierce, so feisty, and I was just like, I would like some more of you as well in the next book.
Yes.
So many good side characters
Yeah.
in this series.
If I was a character in this book, I would probably have been Arcady, unfortunately.
I don't know who I would have been. I don't think I'm talented enough to be Tessa, but ideally, emotionally, that's where I want to be, just
Yeah.
in charge of like the behind the scenes. Like I I don't want to be in the high stakes situation. I would be sweating so much.
I feel like Tess was the heart of their family, though.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Absolutely.
No, for sure.
Oh God, I don't know who I would want to be / who I would actually be.
Yeah. There are just so many good ones to choose from.
Yeah.
Gosh. Well,
I mean, I might be Leato's sister. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out my gullibility here. I'm trying to figure out my gullibility.
She's growing as the book goes.
it depends on where I'm at in the book as to who I want to be.
That's
It's
true.
a series, Sharon.
Yeah.
This it's I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy, but I think it's more than a duology.
Yeah. The next book comes out in the fall, though.
Yeah, they already submitted it.
I'm so excited.
Am I
When was
checking that
reading
galley
this-
every week? Maybe.
Is it November like every other book?
No, I think
November is
it's
a
like
big
September.
release for fantasy. You have to
November
let it happen.
Such a great month.
It's because of Christmas. You can blame Christmas.
But isn't it coming out in like September?
I
I
think
think
it's
it's
coming out
November.
in
Is it November? Okay, someone's coming out in September though, so I'm confusing it.
It feels like every new book is coming out in November. Like,
Hey, I'm a November baby. It's a good month.
Me too. When is your birthday?
November 14th?
I'm the 29th.
Oh my gosh.
Correction,
December
it's coming out December 7th.
oh,
7th, the Liar's Knot.
So, if you rate books, what was your final rating of this book?
10, apparently.
I'm throwing both fives at it. That's the only 2 fives I got. You can't see my feet.
I gave it a 4.5 because there was some parts, especially in the longer chapters, that felt like it was going away from the main storyline for me. But overall, I absolutely loved it.
I'm like, if I get to use my half stars, it's a 4.5. But if I have to put it like on Amazon or Barnes
Right.
Noble or Goodreads, it's a 5.
Yeah, I rounded it up on Goodreads to 5, but like actual rating wise, I put it at a 4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, it's
And-
because of that tonal thing I was talking about, where like I didn't love the second half as much as I loved the first half. And I guess, I do think from a distance you could poke holes in some plot portions, but like in the moment, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's
I
just so
don't-
much fun.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great time. It was like literally the book that it's like, man, do I have time this Friday to not talk to my friends and just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
read this
I still
book?
recommend it to everyone.
Yeah.
And I wanted to reread it like as soon as I finished.
I did
Read
too.
it before December 7th.
Yeah. I
Me.
I'm
definitely.
rereading it. That's why I bought it.
I want to like go back and pick out like, aha, this is where I was right. And
You're going to have like a conspiracy board with all the.
yes, I'm literally gonna have a
Red
board.
yard and little pins.
Yeah.
I don't mark all the
use-
moments where I'm like, see, it's the spider. This is the moment when
Yeah,
it's the spider.
Yeah,
definitely
that's something I'm gonna look
I'm
at
gonna have to tab
real
this book.
close. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
look at it really closely. And
I'm
make
with
sure-
you. I think it was Mr. Peabody. I think they were one and the same.
That blew my mind when you threw that out there. I'm like, how did I
part
not?
of it is like they did this while doing a role-playing campaign, right? Like that's just like when you're playing a role-playing campaign, that's like I'm like if I'm a character, I'm asking the DM, can I have a pet spider and can it talk to me?
Yeah.
Ugh,
Yeah.
I would never ask
Well,
that.
maybe not a pet spider, but if you're going to
But a
have an
pet.
animal companion, you want to have
companion.
extra
A
ability.
companion.
Give me
I love that
a
he was
familiar.
jeweled. He wasn't just a pet spider, but he was a jeweled pet spider.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love
Yeah.
his name, Mr. Peabody.
Mr. Peabody.
Like,
Oh,
way
look-
to take the fear.
Yeah.
Well, so what did it for me was when he bowed to Ren. And I'm like, all right.
Also-
they have his little top hat.
Also, a spider bowing. Okay, you can't train a normal spider to do that. That's a
Yeah.
sentient spider.
Yeah.
Or Argo's magic. He was able to animate it.
Spider whisperer.
Vargo's not that smart. Remember, Vargo's like doing his best. He's like literally
Well, okay.
doing his absolute best, and
Okay.
it's like B plus. Like
He
it's,
had- he's got a friend, Angela, that's telling him and teaching him this magic.
yeah, so he could get an A on the test when he's cheating with his tutor, sure, but he's got B plus effort on his own.
So what Vargo did is he took a little spider brooch, a little jeweled one. He animated it. It's his listening device.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, I do think there's definitely more to the story, but this is definitely in the Leslie weird predictions category.
I could see both. I'm not gonna lie. I could see.
Yeah.
I could see going
I mean,
both
I'll be
ways.
happy if Leslie's right because that's like bananas and like,
Yeah.
that would be great.
I also feel like there's more magic that we haven't been
Oh, yeah.
fully introduced
Oh,
to.
absolutely.
Um,
I can't
so
wait
it'd be fun to see
more.
that expand.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
if anyone ever finds out if they're selling these tarot cards, put it in that
Mhm.
Discord and like tag me so I can maybe convince myself to buy them.
I'm
'Cause I think they
hoping-
have the art for all of them, but I don't know
Yeah.
if they've made it.
They need to get one of the like subscription boxes to want to do a box around them, because if they do that, you'll 100% get to. Because like Bookish Box did tarot cards. I have some hanging on my wall up here.
But I
Like
want
that.
the full set. Don't they usually only do like a few?
They only do a couple, but like the right box, if they were on their game. So any box people, if
They
you're
did do a
listening-
box actually, because didn't Kayla
Yeah.
Stephanie get one? Kayla
Oh.
got this from a box.
Oh yeah, she did.
I don't remember the box. It's like an adult SFF box, but
Okay, but someone should
Okay,
do the full tarot
upper-
deck. That'd be
Okay.
awesome.
Currently on their
I
website,
don't know.
it's got a full list of the cards in the deck with interpretations for each. You're welcome to create a deck for your own use by writing names on the blank cards like we did, but please do not attempt to put such a thing up for sale. We hope in the not too distant future to make an official version available.
Ooh.
Totally buying those.
Oh man.
Yes.
I'm just saying, like, I don't even like tarot. I mean, well, not like, but I don't do tarot in real life. But it's like these cards are so pretty and so a part of the lore, and like to visually see it, and how each card has like two meanings, and
Yeah.
Oh,
That'd be
that
awesome.
the whole like gods having two faces thing was. Why am I
Oh,
doing
yeah.
this?
because your face has two sides.
Every
My face
day
has two sides.
I'm just come up here at my desk. I'm like, all right, I'm pulling 3. What's up?
Yes.
3 fools. I'm not editing today.
It's so funny because I've had author friends, writer friends who keep a tarot deck by their like writing area, and if they're stuck, they will pull a tarot card randomly and try to use that tarot card to like kind of jog their creative brain a little bit, which like
That's a
is
good
so
idea.
interesting to me.
Especially with how like ambiguous the definitions can be, right? You know?
Yeah. And then add in this deck where each of them has two meanings, and you're set.
Depending on if like eyes are open or closed, or if we're
Right.
upside down or right side up.
Yeah.
You know who needs a copy of this deck? Ola.
Yeah.
And she can
She
do
needs
it
to,
in
like,
a
read it
video.
for that. I don't think she's read this one yet, but she already loves the tarot deck in
Yeah, that
Malazan.
would be a fantastic video from her.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If they make the deck available for sale, I will send her a deck. Just for
Okay,
that
before you say
video.
that, she is like I think in like
Italy.
across the Atlantic Ocean. So before you sign up for
Yeah.
that postage, just know that.
She's in
Yeah.
Italy, so it might be expensive to
Yeah.
send.
I sent a book to Nikki in Canada and it was like $50.
Yeah, it's worse across the Atlantic than across the borders. But yeah, if for some
Right.
reason, like it's like $20 for just a book. So I don't know when you get.
Yeah.
Try
Leslie
sending
will
it
find a
medium
way.
mail.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what I do.
Yeah, I was gonna say I recently learned that if you're going to send books to people, send it medium mail, and it's like at least within the U.S. it's like $5 no matter.
Oh, in the
what.
U.S., yeah, it can be as cheap as
Yeah.
3 or 2 if it's mass market paperback. It
Mhm.
still depends
Yeah.
on its weight, but it's way cheaper.
Yeah.
All
We
right,
learned
girls.
so much tonight.
I know. This was so fun. Thank y'all for coming on and talking about this book. I thank y'all for reading it with me. That was a lot of fun too.
So much
Even though
fun.
I got going really fast. I couldn't
I was
stop.
so excited when chapter 3 happened. I'm like, yes.
Oh yeah.
Watching
I was-
everyone get to chapter 3 and realize what this book is like. And I'm like, uh-huh. Because
Your
let's be honest,
reactions were
95% of your
hilarious.
first read of this book is who is the freaking rook? Like, I don't care what else happens at the end of the book,
Right.
but I want to know
Yeah.
who is this rook.
I was just as excited to see your responses to what we were putting in the channel as I was to read it because it was
Yeah.
so cute.
I really didn't want to spoil anything because Liedo's death was actually spoiled for me. I was like a little annoyed.
No.
I was in a Voxer chat and someone mislabeled the chapter.
Okay.
And so
Oh,
I
no.
clicked it, and they meant the chapter after. So it was like right when I was about to, but it was
Mhm.
still just like, ah.
Mhm.
But it's okay. I've been spoiled for worse things.
Yeah, it's happened. But
I do
well,
my best.
We're gonna pop off here. So everybody that came in, thank you guys for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as you enjoyed the book. We're really looking forward to book 2.
We'll have to
The
do another chat.
countdown. Yeah,
Yes.
the countdown to December 7th is on.
Oh, the
So-
countdown to when NetGalley lets me bother them is on. I
Yes.
don't know when
They're
that's going
probably
to
mad
be.
at me. I've got a few from them that they're like, hey, they're emailing me like, hey, we gave you this book. Can you put your
Oh,
review
yeah.
up? And I'm like, yeah.
I mean, if they get too sassy, I'm like, I'm sorry, you're not paying me. Calm down.
This is true.
Simmer down.
Like I'm in the right month. I will get it there. Just written reviews for some reason take me a minute. So
Yeah.
well, all right, ladies. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank all of you guys out there, and we'll see you in the next one. And